Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, once again to the Hammy Show presented by Bulldawg Illustrated. I am accompanied by my good friend and co-host today for the 10th Annual Hammys, Mad Dawg from the Mad Dawg Show. Thank you so much for being here, Mad Dawg.
Man, I am honored. I'm excited. I've been watching the Hammys since your whole career. I can't believe it's been 10 years, man. I'm just so excited to be a part.
Yeah, it's insane. So this is how I got started in the journalism career as a young journalist, a junior journalist, as my first title was for Bulldawg Illustrated. Basically, how it started is kind of a funny story. Vance and Cheri went to dinner with my parents and another couple, and I rattled off a few Georgia football stats, and Vance looked at me and said, "Hey, do you want to come write for Bulldawg Illustrated?" And so that week or that night, I went home, wrote my top 10, sent it to him, and a picture. I wrote it on a piece of paper with a pencil because I did not have a computer. And sent it to him, and he was like, "Well, man, this is awesome. Get it typed up, and we'll put it online." So we put it online, and then the next week, I sent him the Hammys, and that was my first in-print article in a printed newspaper of Bulldawg Illustrated 10 years ago, 2014. Now, 10 years later, I'm full-time after going into my first year of being out of college, and I've been with Bulldawg Illustrated since August, and man, what a ride it's been. So I'm super excited to get to do this yet again, and of course have you on the show because this is a dynamic duo right here.
I love it. I love it. I'm always excited about the Hammys. I think everybody is because it's completely different from any other awards out there.
Exactly. That's the big premise of the Hammys is we're not taking the social media TikTokers. We're not taking the Heisman standards. We're not taking the Biletnikoff standards. Whoever. This is by far the most accurate award show in college football, and that is the Hammys. So let's get it started. First
Yeah.
off, for quarterback of the year, we always kick it off with the quarterback. That is the play caller, the man with now the headset in his helmet, who is directly in contact with the coaches. They are the most impactful player on the field on almost every single team. So, your candidates for the 2024 Hammys Quarterback of the Year are Dylan Gabriel out of Oregon, Shadur Sanders out of Colorado, Curtis Rourke out of Indiana, and Cam Ward out of Miami. So, the first Hammy of the 2024 award ceremony goes to the Quarterback of the Year, Cam Ward. Now,
Wow.
yeah, I know, it's a shocker. It's a shocker. Maybe you have your gripes with me, but Cam Ward out of Miami, the transfer from Washington State, has been nothing short of incredible. 4,123 yards on the season. That's second in the nation, 9.5 yards per completion, an 88 QBR, which is first in the nation, with 36 touchdowns to go along with it. Also, first in the nation. That's hard to argue against. That's a lot of first in the nation's categories that he's achieved. But like I said, he's a transfer from Washington State. He was a highly touted portal guy, and he came into Miami and radically changed Coral Gables. He has single-handedly turned Miami into a contender. That is until this past weekend when they got upset by Syracuse. But yeah, what do you think about that first one, Mad Dog?
It's exactly like you said. It's hard to argue with it. You look at what he's done, you look at what he did to Miami. He can't help that Syracuse scored all those points. I'll tell you this, Auburn sure would have liked to have that guy. And you take him and you pull him off of Miami and you plug him in at Auburn, and they probably reverse their records.
Yeah.
Um, so it's an absolute no-brainer. And God, I didn't realize his stats were that eye-popping.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, it's crazy that Miami got him out of the portal. I mean, you look at some of these guys or some of these teams that needed quarterbacks, Ohio State being the number one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
Literally, they could have won the Michigan game if they had Cam Ward. And if they had Cam Ward, they probably would have beat Michigan by 20, 21 points, which was the line on the game. So it's kind of crazy that, Ohio State's $20 million roster, whatever, they go and get Quinshon Judkins, the running back from Ole Miss. They go and get Caleb Downs, the safety from Alabama. And then they go to Dollar General and go and get Will Howard from Kansas State. I mean, are you kidding me? You have an elite guy in the portal market, and you go for Kansas State's quarterback Will Howard, who was benched halfway through the 2023 season. It makes no sense to me. Props to Miami for going to get him, but Cam Ward is the Hammy winner of the quarterback of the year for 2024. I think it's hard
Great
to
choice.
argue against.
You can't argue all the case you just laid out, all the teams that would just give anything to have him right now. It's Cam Ward.
Exactly, exactly. So moving on to the running back of the year. This is a landslide, but we'll go ahead and give you the candidates. First candidate out of North Carolina, Omarion Hampton, stud. Second candidate, Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State. Then you got Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee and Cam Skattebo out of Arizona State. Now, first, before I announce this winner, Cam Skattebo is awesome. His name is awesome. He
Yeah.
is like the prototypical stud on like a single A private high school football team that every high school football team had, just somebody that is seeking contact. But the running back of the year goes to none other than Ashton Jeanty. Once again, you cannot argue this one. He is on a historic pace. He, let alone, could catch Barry Sanders' historic 88 season, where he broke every single record in the record book. Everybody thought it to be a record that would be unbroken. Everybody thought it to be the most incredible college football season of all time, and Ashton Jeanty is on pace to get him. So we'll go through his stats real quick. 2,288 yards, 7.3 yards per carry. Anyone over 100 carries in on the season, that's fourth in the country. He had 312 carries. Now, the next best running back had 290 carries. He is getting the ball an average of 26 times per game. He has not had a game with less than 116 rushing yards. He is unbelievable. So, in comparison to Barry Sanders, we'll run through this real quick. Barry Sanders had 2,628 yards and 37 touchdowns in 1988. Now, Jeanty probably can't catch the touchdown record unless he has 8 touchdowns this week and another 8 next week or whatever the math is there. But he is just some 340 yards away from breaking Barry Sanders' single season record. He has a minimum of 2 games left. In his this season, he has well over 5 games with 200 plus yards rushing. So, can he do it? We'll see. But man, what a season for Ashton Jeanty, the running back out of Boise State. He is your Hammy running back of the year.
Is 3,000 yards in a season on the table for this guy if Boise State takes it deep?
I mean, there is the possibility. I mean, because Boise State, all likelihood, if they beat UNLV this weekend, they have that number 4 spot and they get a bye. If they get the bye, they face probably a talented team, more talented than them on paper. But if you have Ashton Jeanty on your team, you can't count them out. And I think Boise State can be a little bit of a chaos creator in this playoff, and it's credit to Jeanty.
My only problem with him is I feel like I haven't gotten to see him enough
Right.
because the highlights are just, they're West Coast highlights and you just don't see enough of them. So I'm looking forward to see him this weekend. I mean, I may actually record that game just to watch him.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the Mountain West has been such a fun league to watch this year, and it's unfortunate because it's West Coast, so we don't get to see a lot of it. It's like the former Pac-12, what once was, but the Pac-12 had the Power 5 draw, so you were kind of always willing to stay up for Pac-12 after dark when the game ended at 2 a.m. Eastern time. However, we've been a little lackluster in, I guess, the marketing of the Mountain West Conference. So not everybody's watching it near as much as they would the Pac-12. But man, if you haven't watched a full Boise State game to watch Ashton Jeanty, he is incredible. I mean, it is something of a fantasy watching him run the football, especially on the Smurf turf, which just makes it 10 times cooler.
It does. The Smurf turf. I love it.
Yeah. So Ashton Jeanty, you are the Hammy running back of the year. Well deserved. It was a landslide. It wasn't even close. Like I said, Cam Skattebo has been awesome. I loved watching him. Omarion Hampton is second in the nation in yards from North Carolina. He's been so fun. And Dylan Sampson, the other finalist on this candidates list, is a serious threat on Tennessee's offense. They've been a serious problem throughout the season on defense, and their offense has struggled a little bit with Nico Iamaliava not finding his stride, and maybe they will come playoffs. But Dylan Sampson has been the rock of that offense. So all four really good running backs, but it's hard to go against Ashton Jeanty in this conversation. So moving on to the wide receiver of the year, your candidates are none other than Travis Hunter out of Colorado, the transfer from Jackson State. The lifeblood, the lifeline of Colorado football has taken Colorado football alongside Deion Sanders and Shadur Sanders and flipped it 180. And finally, Nick Nash out of San Jose State. You might not have watched him a lot, but the dude is insane. However, your wide receiver of the year is Teteroa McMillan. Hard name to pronounce, but he is fun to watch. Arizona burst onto the scene last year, finished top 15 in the country. Him and Noah Fafita, they were a dynamic duo, but Teteroa has still been insane. Arizona's not near as good as they were last season, but Teteroa has still been and asserted himself as one of the top, in my book, the top wide receiver in all of college football. 1,319 yards. That's third in the nation. 15.7 yards per reception and 8 touchdowns on the year. He will be the number one wide receiver taken off the draft, taken in the draft in the 2025 NFL draft. God, that's crazy to say. But yeah, so Teteroa McMillan, that is your wide receiver of the year.
Love it because he's a little bit off of everybody's grid. And so, and again, somebody we haven't seen much of, but he's so deserving. I mean, his stats speak for themselves. And I did not know that Mel Kiper, I guess it's Mel Kiper, is the one who has him the first receiver going in the draft.
Yeah, I think it's Mel Kiper and Todd McShay. I think Mel Kiper has him rated as high as the third best player in the draft class, not just wide receivers. He is the number one wide receiver and the third best player in this 2025 NFL draft. So Teteroa McMillan, man, it's a tongue twister. But Arizona had a tough season, 4-8. However, they would have been 0-12 if it wasn't for him. So he is an impactful player on that Wildcat squad. It's a time of growth for the Wildcats after they lost their head coach Jeff Fish to Washington in the departure of Kalen DeBoer. So a little bit of a turnaround for Arizona this year, but man, McMillan, he's been super fun to watch. So that's your wide receiver of the year. Moving on to the tight end of the year. Now, you asked me before this if we talk about anybody who's won previous Hammys. Well, let me tell you who's won the past 3 tight ends of the year. That is none other than your very own Brock Bowers. Now, what is Brock Bowers doing in the NFL this year? Well, he's 4th overall in receiving yards. Yes, 4th overall in receiving yards, not just among rookies, not just among tight ends. No, among all pass catchers in the NFL, he is 4th in receiving yards. He is
Insane.
number 1 among rookies, followed quickly behind by Ladd McConkey, another Georgia Bulldog. He is having one of the best seasons a rookie could ever have in the NFL. He's very much in the offensive rookie of the year debate. He has been spectacular. So, this tight end of the year, it could bode well for the winner, if you will. So your candidates are Harold Fannin Jr. out of Bowling Green. Not a lot of people have watched him, but man, he's insane. Tyler Warren out of Penn State. He's had a few games this year where when that Penn State offense isn't working, Drew Aller just finds him and literally they start moving the ball. I think he had like 240 yards in one game. And then Holden Willis out of Middle Tennessee State. Man, I love seeing these FCS, these group of 5 teams having a stud at tight end because that's like the epitome of a group of 5 or an FCS school is having just some bruiser of a tight end that blocks and catches passes super well. So your winner of the tight end of the year is Harold Fannin Jr. out of Bowling Green. He's been insane. So we talked about Teteroa McMillan last, who is 3rd in the nation in receiving yards. Well, Harold Fannin Jr. is number 2 in receiving yards. He is the highest tight end with receiving yards, highest ranked tight end in receiving yards this season by a long shot, like over 400 yards. He's got 1,342 yards on the season nine touchdowns, 13.4 yards per catch. Like I said, you might not have heard of him because he's out of Bowling Green, but he's 6'4", 230 pounds. You better watch out for him because he will be in this 2025 NFL draft and he will be a star on Sundays.
Another just a selection that was off the grid. You're educating me. And if you're educating me, you're educating everyone because I feel like I'm up to speed on these guys. That guy wasn't on my radar. And, it's about time somebody got that award besides Brock Bowers. Now, where is this guy shaping up? Where does he look in the whole Mackey Award?
He's a finalist for the Mackey Award. I'm not sure what those odds are or anything, but man, if there's anybody deserving of it, it should be him. I know because you go to Bowling Green, because you're in some mid-major school that's an FCS. I don't even know if they're Group of Five. They might be FCS. I think they're out of the MAC, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But you don't get a lot of attention, but when you put up 1,300 yards of receiving at tight end you should get some attention. And I think these NFL scouts, these draft professionals like Mel Kiper and Todd McShay, they're going to take notice of him because you can't turn away from 1,300 yards receiving. And people might ask, well, then he must be a terrible blocking tight end. He might be just this small guy that's like borderline receiver tight end hybrid, and they just put a TE next to his name. No,
Mhm.
he is an excellent blocker. And on top of that, the best pass catching tight end in college football. So once again, hard to go against. It was another landslide like Gene T. The quarterback one was a little close, but good Lord. Harold Fannin Jr., Bowling Green, man. They're in the Hammys. I think this is the first Bowling Green winner to be a Hammy winner.
And if you want to know about the Bowling Greens of the world, you got to be watching Tuesday Night Football. The Tuesday Night
Action.
Football, the Maction, baby, the Maction.
It is
That's where you
awesome.
find these jewels.
It is. It is. These are the guys like the Cam Scadaboo, but Cam Scadaboo's at Arizona State, who's in the Big 12 championship. But these guys are your like single A private school kids that are just like the best football player above and beyond on the football field. But they went to these single A private schools, and they're maybe not going to get noticed by these big brands, these SEC and Big 10 schools, even ACC, Big 12 schools. But you go and you put these people in a MAC conference, it's game over. They're just all out football guys. They love ball and they will never hang up the cleats. They will forever just want to tote the rock. And all the respect in the world to Harold Fannin Jr. and Bowling Green, of course.
Absolutely. Can't wait to see more of him on Sunday.
Exactly, exactly. All right, moving on to your defensive player of the year. So your candidates from Boston College, the defensive end, Donovan Ezaraku. I think I'm saying that right. Then Travis Hunter out of Colorado, the defensive back. Yes, he's been a candidate for two awards already. And finally, Abdul Carter out of Penn State, your defensive end. Now, your defensive player of the year is Donovan Ezaraku. This dude, once again, I'm going to say it like 1,000 times because each one of these Hammy Award winners are going to be playing on Sundays. That's how I like it when these guys from these no-name schools or even Boston colleges, but not a winning program, go to these drafts and make it high, day one, day two draft picks because they're absolute ballers in college. Ezra has 16 and a half sacks on the year. That is number one in the nation. 80 total tackles as an edge rusher. Insanity. 37 solo and 3 forced fumbles. Now, what decided this one for me? I was going to go Abdul Carter when I thought of it last week, but I had to go with Ezraku because in his last two performances, we'll first talk about their Pitt game last week. In his final game, he closed out the year with 10 total tackles, 4 of them solo, 3.5 sacks in one game, and 4 tackles for a loss. That's what sold me. Then again, I look at the week before when they played North Carolina. He had 2 sacks, 7 pressures, 3 quarterback hurries, and 8 tackles. You can't you can't do better than that in a 2 week span as an edge rusher. So that's what sold it for me. He closed out the year on a high note. I was watching some podcaster who's talking, big board in the draft and all that stuff. Not a Mel Kiper or Todd McShay, but, just a podcaster, an everyday dude like us that loves
Right.
football. And he was like, this dude just made him some money. And he did. I mean, that is an absurd stat line in 2 weeks. And then 16 and a half sacks on the year. Absurdity.
Well, speaking of making money, I was just thinking about these guys. You know how they like to list awards on their resumes? You
Yeah.
need to be reaching out to agents to let them know that they can add a Hammy award onto their resume. Because
Yeah. Yeah.
who knows how much money that can make them?
Yeah, I know. I need to like get in touch with LinkedIn and have like a Hammy Show icon pop up. So when you put your award on your LinkedIn
I
resume,
love it.
the Hammy
I
Show
love it.
icon
Yeah,
comes
I
up.
love it.
I mean, it would be pretty sweet. But yeah, I mean, I do need to reach out to these agents. Every one of them has them now because of the NIL. So they'd be honored to. They should be honored. This is the greatest award in college football. So they would be absolutely thrilled to have a Hammy Show logo next to their name and on their resume.
Maybe we need to organize a banquet and just invite them to attend.
We got to get on some emails. We gotta start talking. We gotta reach out to the Jimmy Sextons of the world and of CAA football and or CAA sports and figure out how we can get in touch with these players. Because, like we said, the Hammy Show, the Hammies, they're the
If
best awards in college football.
if anybody can get in touch with Jimmy Sexton, it's Hammy.
Yeah.
I know I know how vast your network is. I've seen it. I've seen it in action. You can do this.
Well, we'll see. I might have to talk to Coach Smart. I mean that is his agent, and then maybe a few of his players because they're represented by him, and then literally every other college football coach in America, and see if they would put me on Jimmy Sexton's radar because he represents everybody. And so if I got in touch with him, this could become the greatest award ceremony in college football. Not that it already is,
Next
or,
thing you
or
know, Jimmy Sexton needs to be representing you.
yeah, there we go. Now we're talking. That's how you put some money in my pocket.
There you go.
All right, moving on. This is one of my favorite awards because these guys are the heart and soul, especially of college football. This is your offensive lineman of the year. Now, your candidates out of Texas, the left tackle Kelvin Banks, stud. Out of LSU, another left tackle, Will Campbell, and maybe a shocker to the candidate list, your left guard out of the University of Georgia, none other than Tate Ratledge.
Let's
And
go.
your winner, and no biases, is Tate Ratledge.
There
Now,
we go.
now everybody's gonna accuse me of bias. Everybody's gonna say, I mean, look at my shirt. Nothing finer in the land. Now, Tate, there's nothing finer in the land than you, especially in the offensive line category. But this is no bias, and I'll tell you why. Tate was one of the highest regarded returning offensive linemen in college football. He came back for his fifth year because he didn't want to go out on a year where he lost to Bama and he didn't win a national championship. And now all of that is on the table in front of him. Not only that, he now has a chance to go win an SEC championship. Well, all was derailed 4 weeks of the season when he had a high ankle sprain. He did the tightrope surgery, he sat out for 4 games, and he came back against Ole Miss. What happened against Ole Miss? The Dogs got owned. That defensive line, which is probably the best defensive line in college football, owned them. And Tate Ratledge talked to me and said, I own it. This is on me. I'm the leader of that team. I'm the leader of that unit. And this is on me. I completely take blame for this entire loss. That is your offensive lineman of the year. That is who I want in an offensive lineman. That is who I want protecting my quarterback, protecting my running back. That is who I want in the trenches. That is who I want getting off the bus first because he's the biggest dude and inflicts pain and fear into any opponent. He has a not for himself, but for others mentality. And that is your offensive lineman of the year.
I mean, who can argue with that? I mean, just everything you know about this guy already, and then words that pop to mind, unselfish, coming back for his teammates. He's just a winner. There's just certain people like Stetson, like, Dan Jackson. Tate Ratledge is just a winner. He's a leader on this team. Just like you said, he owned that loss and, fought back from a high ankle sprain, a tough, tough injury. and I can't think of anybody more deserving.
I agree. I agree. And those other two offensive linemen on the candidates list were great. Kelvin Banks out of Texas is going to be a serious problem for that Georgia defensive line. However, the glaring blemish on his resume is he got owned against Georgia. Now you could say Tate got owned against Ole Miss, but that was in a head-to-head matchup, and the College Football Playoff Committee values those head-to-heads, don't they? So in that head-to-head matchup, Tate Ratledge was the better offensive lineman because Texas's defense, another great defensive line, couldn't get to Carson Beck. Well, Jalen Walker was all over Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning. Will Campbell for LSU, I mean, LSU fell apart, and it was largely in part to pressure on the quarterback. They'll both be highly, highly touted draft prospects going into the 2025 NFL draft. But if you're overlooking Tate Ratledge because of what happened against Ole Miss or the injury scares or whatever, that trait, those characteristics, what I just talked about, should have him high, high, high on your draft list because he is the Hammy Offensive Lineman of the Year.
Love it. Love it.
There we go. All right. Now people are really going to accuse me of biases, but special teams player of the year. Your candidates are Edward Chapliski out of USC. I think I'm saying that right. I literally watched a YouTube video earlier today to make sure I said his name right. He like went on YouTube and said it. But he's the punter out of USC. Then Alex Mastromano out of Florida State, another punter. Then another Alex Rayner out of Kentucky, the kicker, and Brett Thorson out of Georgia. Now I got a little foreshadowing in there, but your winner is Brett Thorson, the punter from Georgia. And I'll tell you why. So listen here. Brett Thorson and the Georgia punt team, punt defense, has not allowed a punt return in almost 2 years. That is until this season. Brett Thorson on the year averaged 46.9 yards per punt. That's ninth in the nation on 33 punts. He had a 68-yard long and 21 punt return yards this whole season. Now, last season, the Dogs went without a single punt return. In all the whole season, 14 games, not a single punt return. He had 7 punt returns this year. 6 of them were for negative yards. Not until Tennessee 3 weeks ago, did he have a punt return on him. It was insanity because he got the tackle. So this dude sees a seam. The punt defense has not given up a return in, 400 a million days. And he sees the seam, cuts through the punt defense, and the last man standing between him and the end zone is Brett Thorson. And what does he do? He lays him in the dirt. He saves a touchdown. Momentum completely swings in Tennessee's way. That game goes a complete different direction. Georgia's not even in playoff conversation. Georgia is not even in the SEC championship. Georgia, without Brett Thorson, is nothing because that special teams is a special, special part of this football team, and Brett Thorson is the most special of all the land. So that's your special teams player of the year, Brett Thorson, the punter out of Georgia.
Yeah, it's like you're reading my mind. I mean, he saved Georgia's season with that tackle. He doesn't make that tackle. Tennessee scores. I bet we lose that game. We're mired at 9-3, trying like crazy to talk our way through an Alabama loss, an Ole Miss loss, and a Tennessee loss, and probably not doing it with this committee. But he comes through with that tackle. Kirby has that special ceremony where he teaches everybody how to tackle, which everybody saw online, which was hilarious. And when you say he's the best punter in all the land, I think you're saying planet Earth because he's the Thunder from down under.
Exactly. I was going to mention the Thunder from Down Under. It is, first of all, the greatest nickname in college football. And I want to talk about these other candidates really quickly. So you look at USC, their season. Chapliski has like 45 punts on the year. He's a stat padding punter. That is because USC is 6-6 and they punt the ball all the time. Then you go down to Florida State. Well, they're 2-10 on the year. Of course, they punt all the time. They can't do anything else. Their offense can't move down the field. Another stat padding punter. Alex Rayner of Kentucky. Kentucky has one win against a Power 4 opponent, and that is over Ole Miss in a huge upset. Of course, they can't move the ball down the field, of course they're going to kick the ball. So those are all stat padding special teams players, if you will. Brett Thorson is on one of the best teams in the country. He's got 33 punts on the year because we have an offense with a pulse and we can move down the field. Now, do we need to get better? That's a whole nother conversation. But Brett Thorson has, when the moment has shined down on him, he has stepped up to the plate and delivered big, pinning opponents, flipping the field. That is why he's your special teams player of the year.
Could not agree more. Especially when you look at his whole body of work, it's insane.
Yeah. And I mean, that video, like, we got to talk about the video. The video was awesome. I mean, what was it? His three rules were be tough, be fast, and be tough. You
Yeah.
can't beat it. You can't beat it. The Thunder from Down Under, you are the Hammy Special Teams Player of the Year. So, moving on to your Freshman of the Year. This was a heated debate. One of the most heated debates of this entire ceremony. Um, First candidate is Lenoris Sellers, the quarterback out of South Carolina. Then you got Jeremiah Smith, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. Dylan Stewart, another South Carolina Gamecock, the edge rusher. And Ryan Williams, the Alabama wide receiver. Your winner is none other than Lenoris Sellers. Respect the specs. He wears glasses. He's the next great college football player after Rodrigo to wear glasses on the field. The goggles, excuse me. But Lenore Sellers has been nothing short of amazing this season. The huge win over Clemson last week, he took over that game. But on the year, he's got 2,274 passing yards, 17 touchdowns through the air, a 70.3 QBR. But get this, 655 rushing yards and 7 rushing touchdowns. That's the difference maker. That's what makes him the freshman of the year. He, like I said, took over that Clemson game. Now, this might be the most biased one of all. Over the Georgia ones, over anything like that, Lenore Sellers won me some money last week, I got to be honest. I took South Carolina to win the game, and then live bet Lenore Sellers 2 or more rushing touchdowns at plus 910. Well, the only two touchdowns South Carolina scored against Clemson were Lenore Sellers rushing touchdowns. One with a
Okay.
minute and 15 seconds left. And boy, did I go nuts. That is not why he's the Hammy Freshman of the Year, but that maybe contributed to it a little bit.
It sure couldn't hurt it. And, he is everything you said is correct. And he's somebody that I look at and go, he'll be progressing through the Hammy Awards through the following years, right? Freshman of the year this year. You'll probably be looking at him to be quarterback of the year, player of the year. Um, is he, is South Carolina on our schedule next year? Because I don't want to play them with him.
No, they're not, thank goodness. So the schedule, the format, how it works is we play every SEC opponent we played this year, just location swapped. So our home schedule is going to be insane next year. We got Alabama at home, Texas at home, Ole Miss at home.
But we'll get him when he's a junior.
Yep, we'll probably get him when he's a junior. However, and this is maybe a little contentious in freshman of the year voting, but he is a redshirt freshman, so he could go to the league after next year. But
Oh,
a
yes,
redshirt freshman is still a freshman in everybody's book, so they got to be in my book. Uh,
absolutely.
yeah, but no, these other candidates, like I said, I mean, this was a tight race. Jeremiah Smith, wide receiver out of Ohio State, if they had Cam Ward at quarterback or somebody with a pulse at quarterback who could throw the ball more than 30 yards down the field, he would have run away with this because he made some circus catches that were hard to believe. And
Yeah.
that Ohio State wide receiving core is insane with Emeka Ibuka. And Jeremiah Smith was a better receiver than Ibuka. And he's a freshman. So he was at the top of that list, a hard person not to give it to, but he just didn't get enough attention because his quarterback couldn't get him the ball. Then you got Dylan Stewart, another South Carolina Gamecock, which is why we were talking about South Carolina being so scary. And this dude's on the other side of the field. He was a game wrecker. He was, I mean, so hard to play against and somebody that no offense wanted to worry about. And he's a freshman, and he's a true freshman. So you got at least 2 more years of him. And then Ryan Williams. I mean, you heard it about a million times if you watched an Alabama game that he was 17 years old. But it is insane that he's 17 years old and he did what he did as a wide receiver. And
Yeah.
when the Crimson Tide was firing on all cylinders, he was at the forefront of that. He was a stud and he was special to watch, even though he broke my heart in Tuscaloosa. He's going to be a problem and a seriously good receiver for the next 2 years.
He absolutely is. And so is Sellers, man. And it's one of those things where, like, if I was a South Carolina fan, I would be just beside myself. It's a stolen season for them. Officiating took this season away from them. And if I'm the committee and I'm looking for the best teams and I'm really drilling down and watching these games, I'm looking at them with that quarterback and that defense and going, this is easily one of the 12 best teams. Easy, hands down.
I
Better
agree.
than better than Indiana, better than Penn State, better than a lot of them. And thoughts and prayers for the Gamecocks fans on the stolen season, man, because the breaks did not go their way.
No, they did not. I mean, the officiating really did mess up their whole season. That LSU game was taken away from them in the worst fashion. And I get the logic behind Alabama probably being the team out of those bubble teams of South Carolina, Ole Miss, Bama, Miami, and we'll see if SMU loses them too. But you know, I completely think South Carolina is one of the best 12 teams, as you just said. I mean, their win over Clemson was so impressive. They're one of the hottest teams in college football right now. They have been just downright good since
Yeah.
October 7th or whatever it was when they played Alabama. And they were good in that game too. And a costly turnover gave the ball back to the Crimson Tide. But I mean, Lenore Sellers, maybe South Carolina fans should be happy because this is just going to light a fire under the Gamecocks' ass, pretty
Yeah.
much. And
Yeah.
they're going to, I mean, they will be a no fun team to play next year.
Oh, they'll be a sexy preseason pick.
Oh
Big
yeah,
time.
yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, I wonder, I wonder. I'm going to look at these odds like as soon as the SEC championship ends. There's way too early predictions on next season's odds to win the SEC, and South Carolina should be top four, if not top three.
No doubt.
Yeah,
No doubt.
yeah. So that is your freshman of the year, Lenore Sellers. Respect the specs. He wears goggles. I think he wears contacts now, but still, he wore goggles when he was playing at some point this season, and it's just such a cool look.
It
Um,
really,
so that is your freshman of the year, Lenore Sellers. Congratulations, Gamecocks. You got yourself a Hammy Award winner. So moving on. Now, you don't have to contribute too much to this award if you don't want to, because this one is one that I hand over to my sister. It is the best looking player of the year. Now, the other only other candidate in this running, according to her, was Ryan Williams, and he's 17. My sister's 19, so we can't be catching cases on this show. And so we she not we she went with Will Johnson, the Michigan defensive back. Congratulations, Will. You deserved it. I guess you're the most handsome player in college football, according to a freshman at the University of Georgia. You've had a great year. Michigan hasn't until they beat Ohio State. But yep, good job. Best looking player. We can
golf
move
clap.
on. You win the Mimi presented by the Hammy Awards. So next up, the uniform of the year. Now this has been a Hammy show staple. This has been a Hammy Award staple. Um, the uniform of the year has consistently gone to one of the armed forces, normally Army or Navy. They always unveil some super cool uniform for that. America's game, the greatest college football rivalry, I think, in my opinion. It is one of the coolest atmospheres that you could go to on my bucket list. And it has historically been one of those uniforms, whether it's Navy or Army. However, this year, we had a classic uniform battle when Texas A&M hosted LSU. It was a blackout versus a whiteout. Now, personally, I think LSU's Tiger logo and their colors, I'm not a huge yellow or purple fan, but together, somehow, some way, they look cool on the football field. And that tiger logo, the tiger eye in Death Valley, is just such a cool, cool, cool tradition and logo of college football. However, in that classic game, when A&M came out on top, they came out on top in the uniform game too. Their blackout uniforms, they didn't get too flashy with them. They didn't get too, metallic helmets or anything. No, they went matte black helmets, all black uniforms, white numbers, no maroon outline, nothing. Just block numbers, block Texas A&M, and a cursive Aggies decal on the helmet. And boy, it was crisp. It was so good looking. And like I said, it was an all-time uniform game, but Texas A&M came out on top on the scoreboard, and they came out on top in the uniform game.
No argument here. I mean, to borrow a word from my daughter, those uniforms were dank. They were just straight up dank.
Look at you. You're staying. That's some pop culture from the Mad
I
Dog.
know.
Love it.
Yeah.
I
You like
love it.
that?
Yeah, that was good. That was good. I mean, so some historic history lesson of the Hammies uniform of the year. Ole Miss has claimed this award with their powder blues when they were first introduced. I think they were the first ever uniform of the year winner in 2014 when they first introduced the powder blue uniforms, and they're cool, man. That's a good looking color combination. Um, but this black uniform, man. I mean, I don't know if I want a blackout. I don't know how I feel about it. I think it'd be cool in Athens, but Texas A&M did it right. They really did.
Do you think we'll ever black out again?
I mean, it's so funny. I saw like, one of those like memes. It's like a cycle, and it was like at the top, fans calling for a blackout, arrow down. Kirby saying they're not wearing black, arrow down. Fans still expecting to come out in black after the coin toss. Players come out in red. Back to we're wearing black the next game. So I don't know. I mean, we're in a constant cycle of whether or not the Georgia Bulldogs will ever wear black again. But I mean, if we don't, I'm not opposed to it. If we do, I'm not opposed to it either.
I've got a
But if we
truce.
do it, we got to keep it the classic look. Like I want to keep the silver breeches. I want to keep the red helmet. Like I don't want to go all black. Texas A&M did it right. They're a little more modern-esque in their uniform game than Georgia, so they can get away with it doing the all black pants, all black helmet, and all that stuff. But let's keep the classic look and just go black jerseys.
I got a truce for you. Okay.
Right.
You you black out in games like UMass, where there's I'm not going to say little risk of losing, but a lot less.
Right.
So players get to see it, the fans get to see it, the recruits get to see it because it's just a good look, right?
Right.
Everybody wins.
I agree. I agree. I mean, when the fans called for a blackout against Tennessee, I think that was like 30 decibels of the crowd noise. That's what contributed to it. I mean, and I'm all for the fans blacking out. The Spike Squad calling for it, UGA Barstool calling for it. That was awesome, and it made for an electric atmosphere in Sanford Stadium. But when we're struggling for crowd noise, when Kirby's calling us out for not staying until the fourth quarter and all that stuff, come out in black. And we might have 93,000 full against UMass with 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, up 60 points. So I don't know. It's just I'm with you. I think it'd be a cool thing. But then again, you go back and I think it was either Louisiana Lafayette or Nicholls State, and we wore black against them and beat them like 2 by 2 points.
It wasn't Nicholls State, which was almost the greatest upset in the history of college football, and
Oh
I was
yeah,
we did not black out for Nicholls.
yeah, you're right. You're right. That was
But
we were wearing red that day.
I'll
That
never
was so
forget that
sketchy.
game though.
Oh, it was sketchy. It was sketchy, wasn't it?
It was so sketchy.
I mean, I can't believe, yeah, Nickel State. Wow. What a throwback. Throwback Wednesday. Maybe that should be the new hashtag instead of Throwback Thursday. Just throw everybody off. Throwback Wednesday.
There
All
you
right.
go.
Moving on to the next Hammy, the play of the year. Not the player, but the play. There's really only one that came to mind, and that is Ryan Williams' catch versus Georgia. It was the game saving, game winning touchdown catch. And not only was it game saving and game winning, but it was one of the most acrobatic plays I've ever seen. Let alone he was 17 years old. He was going up against, in coverage, Malachi Starks, a Jim Thorpe Award finalist, one of the best safeties in football, a highly, highly touted draft prospect. and he in the air did a 360 turn, caught the ball, broke a tackle, and burnt the Georgia defense. As my tears rolled down my face, I was soul crushed, but I knew that I was watching a superstar and the play of the 2024 season.
Sadly, I can't argue with you. I can't think of any other play that comes close. That was a video game play, quite
Yep.
frankly. And it was just, what are you going to do with that?
You
There's
can't do
nothing,
anything.
nothing you can do.
I mean, it's insane. I mean, like I said, he was going up against, historically of recent memory, Georgia's the best defense. Now, have we been that this year? No, but we were a pretty good defense, and we got scored a lot of points on us. And Ryan Williams, both of those plays, both those catches were probably in the could be in the running for this award. But that one to win the game, oh my gosh, it was soul crushing, heartbreaking, every word you can imagine of utter pain and disbelief. And a 17-year-old did that.
And what killed you was it wasn't like it was Milrow making a great play. It was just a classic Milrow heave the ball up and hope for a receiver to make an acrobatic catch. And in this case, I mean, the guy just goes off,
Yep.
bails him out. I don't know. It's that one's gonna sting for a while.
Yep. Yep. You know what? This is maybe a good riddance moment. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Julian Humphrey was in coverage on that one. He just entered the transfer portal.
Yes, he did. Well, there's his low light for the NFL to look at in case
Yep.
he's thinking about going to play on Sunday already.
Exactly. Exactly. Yep. All right. That makes me feel a little bit better. Good riddance to Julian Humphrey. He doesn't deserve to be a Georgia Bulldog. If we win this SEC championship, he won't get a ring. Um, so that is your play of the year. Ryan Williams catch against Georgia to win the game. What a play by the true freshman. It's hard to revisit, but it's very worthy of this award. So moving on. Now this one will bring great joy. Upset of the year. So I got to give you a little stat first. This is your stat of the day presented by your host Hammy Culpepper. There were 37 unranked wins over ranked opponents. That is 37 upsets in the college football season of 2024. That's unheard of. Now everybody's talking like they're comparing this year to 2007 when all chaos broke loose in college football. That stat alone could maybe put 2024 above 2007 as the craziest year of college football to date. But upset wise, I can narrow it down to four of those 37. Northern Illinois beats number five Notre Dame 16-14 in South Bend, Indiana.
Stop
Then
right there. That's my vote. That's my
that's your
vote.
vote.
I don't
I
know if
mean,
you.
okay, that one I really had it between that one and one other,
Okay.
but the other there's three more. Vandy over number one Alabama 40-35. Kentucky over number six Ole Miss 20-17, and Michigan over number two Ohio State 13-10. So
God,
your vote is Northern Illinois.
I, that's just my favorite one because it just all the Notre Dame people want to talk about, how great they are. Their schedule's really average, and if they're so great, how do you let Northern Illinois come in? Directional Illinois comes in and beats you at home. I mean, you can't explain that.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to argue that. However, your winner is Vandy beating number one Alabama.
I can't
Now,
argue with it.
I mean, it's crazy because this year, like we said, there's been 37 unranked wins over ranked opponents. It's insane. So this is a tight race, very tight race. And Michigan, Ohio State, I mean, that was just insanity in my opinion. One of the most shocking wins, even like, but it's a rivalry game, so that factors in. And Michigan's just had Ohio State's number, so I can't really like give that one away because you never know what's going to happen rivalry weekend. And then Kentucky over Ole Miss. The only reason this one was considered was because Kentucky was 4-8 on the year, and their one Power Four win was over Ole Miss. Their one SEC win was over Ole Miss. That's insane. But why I go Vandy over number one Alabama is the play that we just talked about happened the week before. Alabama's riding high. Everybody's like Kalen DeBoer is the next Nick Saban. There's no stopping Alabama. They didn't skip a beat. Alabama's the king of the mountain, king of the hill, whatever you want to call it. They're on top of college football. They're a blue blood and the laughing stock of the SEC. Now, Vandy had a better year than normal, but the laughing stock of the SEC, Vanderbilt, in a stadium that is still under construction, in a stadium that I don't even know if their scoreboard is there anymore. It was hanging from a crane last I saw. That Vanderbilt team, for the first time in program history, beats a top five ranked opponent, and it was number one Alabama. I mean, it's just the storylines, the narrative surrounding the game. That's what sells it for me. But I totally understand the Northern Illinois one.
Well, but to your point, let me put it this way. I agree with that selection for Vandy over Alabama. I love the Northern Illinois over Notre Dame because I don't like them, but that Vandy game was unique in that, we had been in Athens, Georgia played Auburn, we beat them. Towards the end of the game, everybody's looking at their phones and they're like, "Uh-oh, Vandy may beat Alabama." But in your mind, you're like, I've seen this movie before.
Yeah.
Alabama's going to come back. But then it was like everybody immediately forgot about Georgia Auburn, and we became united in our brotherhood against Alabama, and even grabbed a hold of our Vandy friends. And then the fact that Vandy took down Bama the week after they took us down, it took the vibe in Athens up a notch.
Yeah.
That was a true celebration that they had done that.
It was. It totally was. And like I was thinking about it like, in the immediate response, like, well, does this make us look worse because Vanderbilt just beat Alabama? And then I was like, who gives? Who
Right.
gives? It was Vandy over Alabama. That is insane. Like, never thought those words would come out of my mouth. Insanity.
Yeah.
So but I mean, going into South Bend, you're a group of five team travel to South Bend, Indiana, with the power of the Lord raining upon you, and touchdown Jesus looking down on that sacred field in Notre Dame. That's insane too. But Vandy, I mean, come on, dude, that is it's absurd. Both were insane. There were so many great upsets. I mean, you look at the beginning of the season and Tech taking down Florida State, and we've talked about this game before.
Yeah.
That was one of the great upsets. Now Florida State has since been terrible, so that took them out of this running. But that was a program defining win for Brent Key and Georgia Tech. So I don't know. It was uh it was a crazy, crazy year of college football nonetheless.
Just a quick footnote. I'd like to say to Tech, you're welcome because we had already broken FSU for you in the bowl game the year before, and their program hasn't been the same since. Who knows if it ever will be?
Exactly. Exactly. There we go. We did that to you. We beat him by 60. You beat him by 3. So moving on to the game of the year. Now you could put those upsets in this running too. But what I considered in the criteria of game of the year is two ranked opponents with college football playoff or conference championship qualifications on the line. So, your first game of the year candidate, Alabama beating Georgia 41-34 in Tuscaloosa. Then, Georgia beating Georgia Tech 44 to 42 in 8 overtimes in Athens. Then, Oregon over Ohio State 32 to 31 in Eugene, and South Carolina over Clemson last weekend 17 to 14. So, we'll break these down because these are all entertaining games to talk about. Alabama over Georgia. We talked about Ryan Williams, and then we talked about the aftermath. They had the Georgia hangover. They lose to Vanderbilt. Still an incredible win. Tuscaloosa was rocking. Alabama was, kicking it. They were back on top of the world. They felt like they didn't skip a beat, but they were killing us. And we came back all the way to tie it up and then had our hearts broken. So that's why that one's in the running. Then Georgia Tech. 8 overtimes. That's really all I have to say. I
Yeah.
mean, insanity. Then Oregon over Ohio State. 1 versus 2 at the time, I think it was, or 2 versus 3 maybe. Georgia might have been the number one team that early in the season. I can't remember what the deal was that week. It's all running together.
Hey,
That might
don't forget the Lanning gangster penalty that made them change the rule.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's cool when you like remember when Kenny Pickett did the fake slide for Pitt and
Yeah,
they called it the Pickett rule when you
yeah.
fake like quarterbacks can't fake slide. Now there's the Lanning rule, which is like it's kind of cool when you get a flag named after you. It means you did something right and it bent the rules and it was awesome.
Unless it's hardball when they have to change the rules of the entire game and make everybody be able to wear helmet transmitter radios so people can't cheat.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That is insanity to think about. So that was an incredible game. 1 point margin. Eugene, it's only 60, 70,000 fans in that stadium, but boy, was it rocking. Eugene was going nuts that night. And since then, Oregon hadn't looked back. And that was, their season defining moment. And Ohio State has since clawed themselves back in and then fell to Michigan yet again. So another great game, so fun to watch. And then last weekend, I thought the South Carolina Clemson game was super entertaining. Low scoring among these games in consideration, but man, Lenore Sellers, it was the freshman show. He was a baller. He came in as a 3-star quarterback, sat behind Spencer Rattler last year as a redshirt freshman, and Cade Klubnik, the highly touted recruit, goes to Clemson, 5-star. He's the superstar. He's the one that's going to be the answer to Clemson's brokenhearted prayers since the downfall of losing Trevor Lawrence and the glory days of him and Deshaun Watson. And South Carolina goes into Death Valley in Clemson, South Carolina, and beats them. I mean, it was super thrilling to watch. But we got to get to the winner. And the winner is no more bias, but the Georgia Tech game. I I I mean, I don't know if anybody's seen the matchup predictor thing with
Yes, yes,
ESPN. Yes.
yes.
That was my heart rate. It was like Georgia Tech 100% chance to win. Georgia 100% chance to win. Oh wait, Georgia Tech 100% chance. That's my heart rate. It was bouncing out of my chest. I didn't know what to think. Now, the only gripe I have with this game is college football overtimes suck. Going to 2 point conversions is the stupidest thing ever, in my opinion. And I love college football overtime tenfold over the NFL overtimes with sudden death. But going to 2 point conversions sucked. However, when it is that much on the line, play in and play out, I get why they did it. And that's what made it the game of the year.
Bar none. That was insanity. I mean, I went into some weird space like between overtimes 3 and 6, where it's like, I don't even know how to react anymore. It's like every time it's one play away from losing. You could lose right here, we stop them. You
Yep.
could win right here, we don't, which means they could win the next play again and again and again. I mean, why don't they just keep it from the 25 and then make you go for two after whatever the second one? It's
Yeah.
going to end a lot quicker.
Exactly. I mean, I think so too. And I don't know why they changed the rules after that one Texas A&M LSU game that ended at 74-72 in 7 overtimes and took, 6 hours or whatever. Like why? Why stop that? Like maybe you lost viewers because it was 2 a.m. in the morning, but like it was one of the most exhilarating watches for a college football game ever. And Georgia Tech, might have surpassed that game because it was insane to watch. Insanity is the only word I can use for that game.
I'm just so happy I was there to witness it. I got home and drove back, pulled into Macon at 3:30. If it had been 5:30 and the sun was coming up, I wouldn't have cared. Um, I was at that. I can just say I was at that game,
Yeah,
and I've been at some great ones in the last few years. Right, I've been to two Natties. I've been to the Rose Bowl. I've been to the Peach Bowl against Ohio State. That's right up there with them.
yeah. I mean, it was in the Georgia Tech in the clean old fashioned hate rivalry. I think that game ranks at the top of that rivalry for sure. I know, back in the 40s when Theron Sapp, or sorry, the 60s, whenever it was, when he was the Tech wrecker, and after losing 9 straight to Georgia Tech for almost an entire decade, he finally ends the curse. But that one is up there. and it might be number one in that rivalry. But let me go through some of the narratives surrounding this eight overtime win for the Dogs.
Love
So
it.
first, let's look at the coaches. You got Kirby Smart, former player at Georgia, Brent Key, former player at Georgia Tech. Brent Key, as a sophomore, ended Kirby Smart's career at Georgia, playing career at Georgia by beating him. Tell me that doesn't alone go into this heated rivalry.
Oh yeah.
Then you think about who Tech has at quarterback. Haynes King, the transfer from Texas A&M. Yeah, Texas A&M goes to Tech. He has a great game against us last year. Well, this year he becomes Superman and has over 300 yards passing, 170 yards rushing. He is picking apart this Georgia defense like it was his job and he was made to do it. And then a former walk on who was not even recruited to the University of Georgia named Dan Jackson, Dirty Dan Jackson, comes in and spears Haynes King on a 3rd and 1 and forces the fumble where Chaz Chambliss recovers it, gets the ball back to Georgia, where they had once been down 17-0 at halftime. They had surged all the way back to tie it at 27-0. Need I say it was 27-13 with 5 minutes left in the game. And then you get to overtime. The first two overtimes are insane. Then they throw in the rule that in the second overtime, if both teams score a touchdown, you have to go for two, whatever. Both teams get stopped on the 2-point conversion. Then you get to the 2-point conversions, play in, play out. Kirby Smart, in a masterful way, calls a timeout on every single first lineup Georgia Tech had on offense. And what did Georgia Tech do? After running the ball all over this Georgia defense, they threw the ball every single 2-point conversion except once. And that one play, CJ Allen stuffed Haynes King at the line of scrimmage, giving the ball back to Georgia. And Georgia, for just the second time in that overtime, ran the ball, handed it off to a true freshman in a dinged up running back room named Nate Frazier, a kid straight out of Compton who sealed the game in good old Athens, Georgia. Narrative. The end. Story over. Scene. Whatever you want to call it. That is college football wrapped up in a nutshell.
Man, I mean, I don't even know where to start with that. First of all, Dirty Dan could have earned his nickname from that play alone.
Yep.
Um, you can't spell eight and you can't spell Nate, or you can't spell hate without Nate and eight. I don't know. Brent Key deciding to turn this into some sort of weird I hate Georgia contest and talk about, I mean, I guess he's trying to fire up the base and I guess he's trying to get everybody engaged and raise money and all that. But I mean, at some point, that just turns into fodder for our team. And it felt a little karmic that that loss happened the way that it happened because that's going to sting for a little while. Ooh,
Yeah.
pardon the pun.
There you go. Little play on words. I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. Yeah, that was the game of the year. I mean, it was insane to watch it. It was, oh my gosh, I can't even, my heart rate alone tells you what that game was. Um, so moving on, congratulations to the Dogs on their third Hammy of the year. No biases, no biases. There's just
None.
nothing finer in the land.
Nothing.
And for your last two awards, we get into the heated debates of your coach of the year and player of the year. So, first, your coach of the year. Your candidates Shane Beamer, the South Carolina 4th-year head coach, Fran Brown, the Syracuse 1st-year head coach, Kurt Signetti, the Indiana 1st-year head coach, and Dan Lanning, Oregon's 3rd-year head coach. Your winner is Kurt Signetti out of Indiana. Wow. What has Indiana done to college football this year? They're a basketball blue blood. They're not supposed to be good at football in Bloomington, Indiana. Well, Kurt Signetti thought different. He started it when he came and was hired by Indiana from James Madison. He went to an Indiana basketball game, spoke at halftime, and got up with a microphone at half court and said, Purdue sucks, their arch rival, but Michigan and Ohio State do too. He set the precedent right there that they're not just going to beat Purdue. They're not just going to beat the mid-major Big Ten teams. They're going to beat the big dogs of the Big Ten. They beat Michigan, but their lone loss of the season was to Ohio State. They still finish 11-1. They're happily in the college football playoff, maybe hosting if some things get shaken up in conference championship weekend. But man, Cignetti, he has been a blessing to the Indiana Hoosiers.
Yeah, I mean, he's done a great job. You can't argue with him. I think his press conference was amazing when they hired him, and he said something like, "All I do is win. Google me." I thought that was just extra gangster. I gotta say, I love what Fran Brown's done at Syracuse. I
I do
love the
too.
fire. Really, anybody from the Kirby tree, Lanning, Beamer, they're all in the tree. So
Yep.
you proved that you're not biased by picking someone outside the tree. So you get street cred for that.
There you go. There you go. There's nothing finer in the land than Kirby Smart. He's still the best coach in college football. But these guys for this year have earned the candidacy to be in the talking of the coach of the year and Kurt Cignetti. It's hard to go against him because you go to a school that does not give a rat's you know what about football. That all they care about is the hardwood. And Kurt Cignetti has made them care about the gridiron. So I respect it. Kurt Cignetti, huge, huge season for Indiana. And those other guys, they're great too. I mean, Beamer's done a great job at South Carolina. Obviously, Lanning, the only undefeated team in the country, went out, got his recruiting class, got his portal class. They've been, a freight train moving at insurmountable speeds. And Fran Brown, I mean, goes out and gets Kyle McCord. And what does Kyle McCord do last weekend? He beats Miami, a playoff contending team, while his former team has no quarterback with a pulse, and they lose to Michigan for the fourth straight year. So, what a narrative around Syracuse. Coach Fran Brown. I love it. I love it. Heated debate there for coach of the year.
ACC better watch out for Fran Brown.
I agree. I agree. I would not want to go to the Carrier Dome. That
Yeah.
place, I don't know if I mean, I guess it's the acoustics of a dome, but it gets loud. It was
Yeah.
loud on TV watching that Miami game
Oh yeah.
last weekend. All right. And finally, you're Levy's damn good player of the year. Now, this is a little play on words, a little credit to Vance and Cheri Levy, the owners of Bulldawg Illustrated, who have blessed me with this opportunity to write for Bulldawg Illustrated, do this podcast presented by Bulldawg Illustrated. They have been such a blessing to me in my journalism career and just life in general. So this is credit to them. This is the damn good player of the year presented by the Levies. Um, so your candidates: Dylan Gabriel, quarterback out of Oregon; Travis Hunter, another candidacy; Ashton Jeanty, the running back out of Boise State; Jalen Milroe, the quarterback out of Alabama; and Shadur Sanders, the quarterback out of Colorado. So, this is not the Heisman. This is the most impactful player on a college football team or to the college football landscape as a whole. Last year, our winner for this award was Jordan Travis because single handedly, he shook up the entire college football world when he went down with an injury that kept the Seminoles out of the college football playoff. So, this year, Dylan Gabriel, the only player or the only team that is 12-0 through the regular season. Very impactful, but he's also got probably one of the best rosters in college football around him. Maybe not the single most impactful player on the field when the Oregon Ducks play. Then, Ashton Jeanty. I flip between him and the winner all the time because Ashton Jeanty has seriously single handedly made Boise State relevant. Like we said when we talked about him in the running back of the year, he is on track to do historic numbers. Then Jalen Milroe. Everybody's probably looking at me like, why the heck is he on this list? Well, let me read you a stat. In Alabama's 3 losses, he has 10 rushing yards, 11 rushing yards, and 7 rushing yards. In those 3 losses, he averages 9 yards per game on the ground. In his wins, he averages 77 yards per game on the ground. His legs are the most impactful thing on the Alabama roster. That is why he is in contention for this award. However, he is not the winner because Alabama is still Alabama at some standard. They still have one of the best rosters in college football, if not the best, and they still have a great head coach, and they still have the A on their helmet. Yet, Jalen Miller is still very impactful. Not the winner, though. Then you got Shadur Sanders. Now, this one is easy to compare to the winner because they're on the same team. So I'll go ahead and spoil it. Your winner of the Levy's Damn Good Player of the Year is Travis Hunter. Shadur Sanders first is the quarterback of Colorado, an insanely, insanely good quarterback, probably going top five in the next year's NFL draft. However, on that football team, the most impactful player is Travis Hunter. He plays 115 snaps per game on average.
Insane.
Have you ever heard of that? No, nobody has ever done that. Ever heard of it? He's got over 1,100 yards receiving. He's got 14 receiving touchdowns, one rushing touchdown. He's got four interceptions on the defensive side of the ball. He's got 37 total tackles, 20 solo tackles, and a forced fumble to go with it. That is the most impactful player in college football. That is your Levy's Damn Good Player of the Year.
Well, I think he, despite having all those great players there, I mean, he just stands out so much. Stands out with those stats, stands out with what he does. When you watch this guy, I mean, the announcers are talking. I mean, they're like, "Have you ever seen anybody this good?" And they're like, "No, I haven't." And then they reference coaches. They say, "Have you ever seen anybody this good?" And they're like, "No, I've never seen anybody this good." So that was a no-brainer to me. I mean, that guy he is a hammy.
Yeah, there you go. I love it. He's, hand in the dirt, getting dirty, gritty player on both sides of the ball. It pains me to do it because he's going to win the Heisman, and I don't want to be the Heisman. But when you look at impact on a college football team, that is Travis Hunter. I mean, the Dion effect, the prime effect, whatever they call it in Boulder, Colorado, he's turned that program around, but it is thanks to a man named Travis Hunter transferring from Jackson State with Dion and being the best player on the football field in all 12 games he's played this year, and probably the best football player in America in any single game he ever plays, the best person on the field.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. And I mean, who cares about a Heisman when you can have a hammy?
Exactly.
That's where the street cred comes.
Yeah. I got you know what's a genius idea? You know, the Desmond Howard Heisman pose, which isn't even the Heisman pose of the
Right.
trophy. They celebrate it. Travis Hunter has done it all year because he knows he's going to win the Heisman. We need to have a blonde afro wig underneath the field goal post for whenever a Heisman can at any Heisman candidates games. So when they have their Heisman moment, they can put the blonde wig on because they are doing the hammy. That's the hammy celebration.
The hammy celebration. And maybe the trophy is your icon.
I know I gotta make trophies.
You got to make trophies.
Oh, that would be so awesome if I had them. We would have to do this in person though, because we need a place and everything, not just our
Look,
faces on Zoom screens.
I love excuses to drive to Athens. I would be there. You name the time, I'm there.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you for doing this with me. I know I've kept you for quite a while now, but we had a lot to talk about, a lot to cover. The Hammies are no they don't deserve a short. They deserve to be elongated and made the most of.
Hammies are being respected. You can't take them lightly. I mean, you have to explain the hammies. You have to give the reason why, the support story, the backstory to help your fans, your listeners know why. And once you did, there was a couple of them I was like, I don't know, like the Notre Dame game. Then you convinced me why, the other one was a better choice. So
I mean, you got to explain it. That's why. Yeah, that's why this is the best award show in college football.
bar none, bar none.
I love it. I love it.
That's why
Um,
it's 10 years old. I mean, that's why it's 10 years old.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe the longest standing besides the Heisman. I don't know. We'd have to do some stat digging, but I think this is on up there. No, I'm just kidding. But well, Mad Dog, I can't thank you enough. It's always a pleasure to see your face on a Zoom screen. It's always a pleasure to talk ball with you. And it's always fun to do the hammies.
Always fun to be chopping it up with you. We're always, I feel like, on the same page. And I hope to run into you Saturday.
Yes, sir. I will be there. I will be in the bins, cheering on the dogs and praying for a victory. How do you feel?
I can't get a read on this game, man, at all. It's odd. I mean, it's about the same line as it was last time. Um, you gotta feel like Texas is gonna have learned something from that game. Um, can we come out with our hair on fire like we did for that game? I hope so. I mean, if we can
Yeah,
finally play a game, a full 4 quarters, where we don't throw interceptions and we tackle and we don't drop balls, then nobody can stop us. But for whatever
agreed.
reason, we haven't been able to do that.
Agreed. Agreed. I know. I mean, I keep going back to the fact that it's hard to beat a team twice. We showed it against Auburn in the SEC championship in 2017, and that's what makes me nervous. But I also keep going back to the saving grace of we have not put a complete game together, and when we do, it will be hell breaking loose on that field.
Well, it's hard to beat a team twice, and I don't know if anybody's ever said this, but it could be impossible to beat a team thrice.
Yeah,
So if you're going to play them 3 times and you got to lose one, I think this is one to lose. And hopefully, and hopefully thread the needle as a selfish Georgia fan and get that home game in Athens in December.
exactly. Exactly. I'm praying for. I mean, not praying. I mean that requires a loss, but if we win and we get the bye, I'm the happiest lark on the face of the earth. But you know, I'd like to think we're in this thing no matter what. Although I don't know what this committee is going to do with the 3 loss team. However, let's just go. Let's just go kick their ass.
Let's do it. I mean, horns down, horns double down. Can you give me a score?
Oh, I don't predict. Not no. It's too scary.
It's
If
too
I
soon.
pred- if I predict, mm, I'll predict Texas to win 34-27.
Okay. So you're going Texas covers and the over.
Yes.
I'm going to say dogs win in the under, but no score.
Okay.
I'm, I'm still working on it.
I like it. I like it. I'm maybe that's just superstitious of me, but yeah, there we go. That's our score prediction. That was just a little bonus feature on this Hammy's award show.
That's
But
right.
Mad Dog, you the man. Thanks for doing this with me. This has been awesome.
Man, you're the man. Thanks for including me. And
Of course.
hopefully I can come back for the 11th.
Yes, of course.
In
Sticks.
person.
Sticks. We'll do it in person next year. We'll go ahead and set the date and we'll get it done. But we'll have trophies, we'll have everything. We'll rep it big.
I
But
love it.
this has been awesome. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Hammy Show presented by Bulldawg Illustrated. I'm Hammy Culpepper. This is Mad Dog. We are Unchained today. We are Unchained today. We're doing our little collab Unchained. And this has been super fun. This is the 10th annual Hammys. Thank you all so much for your support, your love, everything and anything in between. You have been amazing in supporting the Hammys and supporting the Hammy Show, supporting Bulldawg Illustrated. So we appreciate all the love. And we will see you next time on the Hammy Show.